Statement of introduction. This fictional creepypasta genre series exists in the moments people don't talk about, the stretch of time between leaving and arriving, the half-lit sidewalks, platforms, bus aisles, and side streets where attention drifts and instincts wake up. These are not stories about monsters that chase you, they are about presences that notice you first, about figures that appear often enough to be remembered but rarely enough to be doubted. The west and south sides of my born city Chicago are not backdrops here, they are participants. Every stop, every route, every shortcut carries its own history, and sometimes that history does not stay quiet. What is seen between stops is rarely meant to be seen at all, and once noticed, it does not always disappear just because you've arrived somewhere safer. These stories are told the way they are heard, second-hand, incomplete, and slightly altered by fear and memory. Names change, details blur, but the feeling remains consistent, the sense that something was wrong long before anyone realized it, and that the city noticed before you did. Things seen between stops is not a warning meant to protect you. It is a record of what happens when routine lowers your guard, when familiarity convinces you that nothing new can happen here, and when you realize too late that the space between destinations is not empty at all. Some figures only exist while you are moving. Some follow routes, not people. And some, like the man in the sad suit, are only ever mentioned after someone stops taking the same way home. Installment 1: The Man in the Sad Suit. No one ever described the man in the sad suit the same way, but everyone agreed they knew exactly who you meant once you said it out loud. He was not something people warned you about, he was something that came up only after someone mentioned changing their routine, taking a different bus, walking an extra block, or no longer waiting where they used to. The first time he was noticed, it was never framed as fear, only as curiosity, the kind that comes from seeing someone who looks slightly out of place but not enough to justify staring. He wore a suit that looked like it had belonged to another decade, dark, pressed, and oddly respectful of itself, even when the rest of him appeared tired. He was often seen standing near bus stops that were still technically active but rarely used, or at corners where the light took longer to change than it should. He did not pace, did not check a phone, and never seemed impatient. He stood as if waiting was not something he did, but something he embodied. People began to realize something was wrong when they noticed he never arrived. He was simply there. Someone would step off a bus late at night and see him standing under a streetlight that flickered inconsistently, or glance down an empty block and find him already positioned at the edge of vision. When asked for directions, he did not respond. When greeted, he did not acknowledge. But when ignored, he would sometimes be closer the next time he was seen, never advancing openly, only occupying less distance than memory felt comfortable admitting. The stories started to connect after routines changed. A woman who stopped taking the same route home mentioned him offhandedly weeks later, only after being asked why she now walked the long way. A man who switched shifts at work described seeing someone similar standing outside a closed station entrance, dressed too well for the hour, staring past the street as if waiting for something that no longer ran. None of them claimed he followed them. They only said he seemed disappointed when they did not arrive where they used to. What unsettled people most was learning that he was never seen during emergencies or moments of panic. He appeared only during ordinary nights, familiar walks, predictable schedules. He belonged to consistency, not chaos. And once that consistency was broken, he did not pursue, he simply remained behind, still waiting at the place you stopped passing through, as if expecting you to eventually remember where you were supposed to be. The last detail most people shared quietly, usually after a pause, was that the suit never changed, but the sadness did. At first it felt passive, almost polite. Later, when remembered, it felt heavier, as if disappointment had settled into the fabric itself. And no one could recall ever seeing his face clearly, only the sense that if they had looked longer, they might have recognized it, not as a stranger, but as someone who had been counting on them to keep moving exactly as before. Installment 2. The Janitor Who Always Adapts. No one remembered when the janitor was hired, only that he was already there the first day they noticed something had changed. When the school shortened its hours, he adjusted his schedule without being told. When the station closed one entrance, he began cleaning another. When the building switched owners, his uniform changed just enough to match, but never enough to feel new. People assumed this was what adaptability looked like, the quiet competence of someone who knew how to survive city shifts, but what unsettled them later was not how quickly he adjusted, it was how early he seemed to know what adjustments would be needed. He was always present before the signs went up, before the locks were changed, before the spaces people stopped using officially became forgotten, sweeping floors that no longer saw traffic, polishing doors that no longer opened, and standing calmly in places that felt closed long before anyone said they were.